So I'm going to be making a few knives. Some of them will be for sale. A couple of them have already been bought. One of them I'm giving away to a viewer who lives in New Zealand. His channel is pretty much all about reviewing knives. So this is 1095 high carbon steel billet. This will be the longest blade I've tried to make. This setup is not ideal by any stretch of the imagination. Like I've said before, start with what you've got and where you're at. I'll take a ball peen and I'll hit along here, sort of smush it out a little bit. I'm no blacksmith expert or anything. I've been doing it for a little while, and I do what works for me. I taught myself. I make some pretty high quality knives. Everyone I've made a knife for, they love it, and I've loved every knife I make for myself. And that's really how it started. I got tired of crappy knives, and I got tired of not being able to find exactly what I wanted, so I just started making knives until I ended up with one that was really nice, and I loved it. I had that knife for 4 years and it was stolen from me. Let's see if I can get some pretty hefty hits right here. So you can see how that's curved back now. I'm just trying to draw that out a little bit more. The handle might be the blade might end up a little bit shorter than I was intending, but that's okay. It's you gotta learn how to just kind of go with the flow. Let the knife do what it wants. But whatever material I'm working with, I like to let it speak to me. I like to let it sort of halfway be in control. So I do like this forge. It's cool. It's the first propane forge I've ever used. When I first started doing a little bit of blacksmithing, I just used an old bathroom sink. The bathroom sink was made out of cast iron, and the charcoal was this like cowboy charcoal that they sell in Food Line. That's how it started. And then I started making my own charcoal because it's pretty easy. But I talked to a few knife smiths, and they said they really like the propane forge because it's less to worry with. It's starting to turn out nice. Since I don't have a shop yet for this, I really focus on certain things in certain seasons. Since blacksmithing is such a hot job, I try to wait for the cooler months to do it. Ooh, I like it. I like the way it's coming out. See, that's the problem right there. It does that every now and then. I don't know what that's all about. One of my buddies showed me he's got a ring on his that adjusts the airflow. But maybe I'll try to figure something out with that. It'll be a keeper. It'll be something to be proud of, that's for sure. I make the sheath for it too, so I'm going to document the whole process. Alright, I think this is going to be the last little bit. It's pretty straight. It's really straight. Just trying to get that edge of that blade a little bit more thin. I like doing it like that because it's less grinding, and it gives it a really cool finish. Oh yeah, looks great. Now I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and drill the holes for the handle, and then I'm going to heat up several blades and go through with the quenching process. Start with a brand new drill bit to put these holes in, and I like these because they're for using with taps and they're very precise. So the brass pin I'm gonna be using is 0.125 or 1/8 of an inch, and this one is 0.128, so it's just a little bit bigger of a hole, which makes lining the pin up with the scales much easier. The secret to making your drill bit last longer is to keep it cool and lubricate. A little bit of oil and not too much of the hole at once before you dip it in something, either oil or water. I like to use oil. Okay, now I'm going to get the handle shape cut out. It might not be long enough, so what I'll do is I'll slowly take away material until it feels right. It's looking pretty good. I like how that feels right there, so I'm just gonna round this off. Now I'm gonna take this over to the belt sander and get a nice shape on both of these. Then I'm gonna quench, then I'm going to bake it at 420 degrees for an hour till it's got a nice straw color on it. Then I will add the scales and do the final grinding on it for the blade and all of that after it's been tempered. Make sure you wash these off with Dawn or some sort of degreaser before you put them in the oven, especially if you're married and you want to stay alive. 1 hour. And now it's time for scales. I'm gonna use this black walnut. This is one board. It was split right down the middle. That way the grain matches, and then I'll cut with a coping saw all around it, giving a little bit of room. Just score around the brass rod and then you can just snap it off. Good. Got some nicely aligned pins. Now I can begin to cut some of this away. Basic shape figured out. I'm going to take some of this material off so I don't have to sand so much by hand. Well, it didn't start out as much, but it's really starting to take shape. It's going to be a nice knife. Let's get this thing glued up, clamped down, and I'll do some hand sanding. Right, so I don't want any glue getting on this bit because it's very hard to clean off. So I'm going to use a little bit of tape to cover that up before I glue it. Okay, that's good. Let's glue it up. Here the epoxy is very thoroughly mixed. For this application I chose some DevCon 15-minute epoxy. So in order for the epoxy to properly bond to the metal, you need to clean off any of that mill scale that you had up there and put some scratch marks in it in both directions. That way it's got some rough area to grab. Put a little bit on these. I'm gonna sit the blade on that. Spread a little bit on the blade, just right in the center so it can squish out. I like to clamp it in 2 spots. Then I'll take and work this excess that's squished out all the way around both scales just to fill up any gaps or imperfections. And you can see that was plenty of glue that I mixed up. It took a lot of knives and a lot of squishy excess and very messy hands for me to get the idea that less is more. All right, it'll be ready to start working on in about 15 or 20 minutes. The glue is completely dry. So what I'm doing right now is I'm brushing the dust out of the grain. The dust will get stuck down in this grain and prevent whatever kind of sealant you're going to use from penetrating deeper, and it makes the richer color come out in the woodwork when you brush it.